Let's bring on Karen.
Hi.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, I'm the one expressing as Karen from a happier place today, which is good.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I really
Why are you happier?
I'm not thinking thoughts that make me unhappy.
Simple, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but you know, I'm really like trying to really do that. And it was so helpful. Like both times I've talked to you about you know, struggling with depression and stuff, it's been really kind of amazing because I've talked to so many people over, you know, 50, well, maybe not 50 years since I've been an adult though, you know, 30 years for sure, about the same stuff. And it just seems like I wallow in it, you know, it just like I wallow. But like when I talked to you the 2 times about it, you know, both times it was like, oh, there's like some peace about this. Like it is possible, you know, to get there. So thank you for that. And I'm still working on it. I still struggle, but I'm working on it. So what I like to talk to you about today, though, is a little bit different. I've been listening lately to David Bingham and John Wheeler a little bit. I don't know if you've ever listened to either one of them, but they're very direct about this spiritual understanding, you know, and John Wheeler is saying over and over, he's like, it doesn't have to be hard, you know, just look at what's really actually here in your experience, you know, and Rupert Spira says kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Hard is also a perspective.
Right?
Hard is also a perspective, right?
Hard is also a perspective. Yeah, that's like an interpretation of what's going on. But so when I really look at what's here, you know, sometimes I get one result and sometimes I get another, and I don't know why. Like part of what put me onto this path to begin with, I listened to a meditation that was just a meditation on being, like just being. It was 45 minutes long, just on being. And there was this huge, you know, experience of oneness, and like there is something more here than I normally am aware of, right? So I know the being, the beingness, I know that is like a pathway in, and sometimes that happens, but a lot of times when I go, okay, just focus on what's here, I am always here. Like I am always here. Like no matter what happens in my life, I'm here to see it. You know, I'm here to experience it. No matter what happens, if I'm not here, it doesn't happen, not in my life. So, you know, I get that. I'm the one who's always here, but there's not that breakthrough with that. It's more like, okay, God, I'm always going to be here. It's almost like in the movie Groundhog Day where, you know, he figures out he's going to have to keep staying in Punxsutawney. You know the movie Groundhog Day. I think most people have seen it by now. And he finds out he's going to have to stay there. And he's just like, I wish I could just kill myself because I just want it to be over. And, you know, he tries all these different ways and it doesn't work. And he's like, crap, I got to just be here forever. You know, it's not a comfort to him, you know, in the beginning at all. And a lot of times when I do it's not that it's depressing to me. Well, maybe it is a little bit sometimes, the idea of being forever when I'm in my depressed state. I don't want to be depressed forever if that's what it's going to be. But just, okay, I'm here watching, you know, experiencing everything that's happening in my life. And so what? There's nothing there. Like, it doesn't feel like there's anything there in it that's like a richness, you know, that I sometimes do get. And then, but most of the time I don't get it. And it almost feels like, okay, there's an intellectual understanding that yes, I'm here, but there's not the spiritual feeling of, you know, any freedom or anything that goes with it. A lot of times when I do looking at what's here, I can get to, for example, okay, if something's not in my awareness, it's not part of my life, you know, in my experience, like whatever if I'm not aware of something, it just doesn't happen for me. And that's a really great insight.
Mhm.
You know, if the tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, it doesn't make a sound because no one experienced it, right? It didn't happen for
Mhm.
anyone. So I can get that things only happen in my life if I'm aware of them, and that I can walk through a place and like not be aware of a lot of things, and so they're not part of my little world, my planet, my world.
Mhm.
Because I have to be here to see it. But that's really as far as this process is taking me, is
Yeah.
I'm always here. The one
Mhm.
thing that's always constant in my experience is my presence in it.
Yeah.
So I get
Well,
that far and then it just kind of stops.
mhm. Yes. What you're describing, Karen, is having integrated masculine awareness without feminine awareness. This is the stage we come to when we just study non-duality teachings, which is very important and very helpful for spiritual growth, but it's 50% of the equation. And it's like you can't study love. That's the tricky part. You have to be it, you have to give it, you have to do it, right? Experience it. And so I'm reminded, as you're talking, I'm reminded of the Buddha's response to his disciples when they asked, "Is this going to be your last lifetime, Lord? Are you done incarnating in this horrible planet because you're enlightened now?" And Buddha turns to them and says, "If you could see what I see, you would want to come back here 1,000 more lifetimes." And so it's
like
like
the end of Groundhog Day. Yeah.
Yes, right, exactly. The end of the movie. So unless we can know what is through knowledge and through awareness, but unless we're loving what is, it's not the full ticket yet. That's why it's described as loving awareness is the true state of our being. And so, as you were saying a minute ago, I am always here. Who is the I that's always here? Because the mind will say, I, the personality, the person, Karen, am always here. And so it's carrying all of the baggage of Karen with it and saying, oh, Karen's just going to always be here and just be aware of what is. Well, that sounds kind of blah. But the I that is always here is absolutely not the personality, because there's many moments where the I is aware and there's no person there. I mean, even when you were born as a toddler, before you gained all your conditioning, who were you at 5 years old? Who were you at 3 years old? Who was the I that was there? Right? There is a pristine, self-luminous, loving awareness that's perfect innocence, and it doesn't know anything. It doesn't have any concepts of the world. It's the don't know mind, as the Buddha said. And so it looks at the world like an innocent child would look at it, full of wide-eyed wonder. Everything is just contagiously lovable. It can't look at anything without loving it because it hasn't learned to make an enemy. It hasn't learned to be separate yet. So once we gain that masculine awareness of I am pure consciousness, the world is unreal, it's Maya, all these concepts, very helpful. But if we don't then go to love to integrate the feminine with that, we'll be left with this sort of tasteless feeling of liberation. This dry, empty, like, okay, it's all nothing. I'm that. Kind of boring. Because that's not the full truth yet. It's not the highest truth yet.
Yeah. The weird thing is, I mean, sometimes I do go there. Like I have experiences where it's just overwhelmingly beautiful and loving. And I think everything's great. And I get that, it really is like a rope snake moment because everything just, it all just switches. But the thing is, like by going and saying what's actually here, I don't get there to that, and I guess it's what you just said. So I would, the intellectual understanding is great and important, but it's not, like you said, it's not getting me there. So I need to figure out, or I need to find a way, maybe find a way is a better thing than figure out. That sounds so mental. How to, the other experience, it always just happens. It's nothing I as a person do, obviously, but it's nothing that I'm even aware of doing on any level. I don't really know how to create the experience that is, what you say, the more feminine side in my life, instead of just, because whenever I do have that, and I have, it feels like it just happens too me.
Right. Right. And it does, in a sense, because you're not a doer who can press the love button and make it love happen whenever you want or something. But intention is really what brings it to life. Desire is what brings it to life, wanting it, because wanting is also a type of love, isn't it? So to give you one analogy, so there's a story of a blind man who strolls into the cave of wonders, from Aladdin. So you imagine walking through and he's just surrounded by treasure and rubies and gold and shimmering diamonds and treasure chests and pearls and you name it. And he's walking through and feeling around and bumping over the gold and the gems, thinking they're rocks, and spends a few minutes walking around and then comes out and leaves the cave and passes by a friend later down the street and, oh, where were you coming from? Oh, I just found this cave. Like, oh, was there anything in there? Like, no, just a bunch of dumb rocks. There's nothing there. Don't bother looking, right? And just keep strolling on his way. Unbeknownst to him, he was surrounded by treasure and beauty and wealth and abundance, but didn't have the eyes to see it. And it's like, that's just a tiny fragment of what's happening to all of us right now. The beauty, the mystery, the aliveness, the wonder, the majesty of life, of every single thing around me. How is it all happening? It's unbelievable what we're experiencing right now. We are in the greatest miracle you could imagine. But here we are in our conditioning without the eyes to see it. And so we don't know everything that's so lovable all around us all the time. So the only thing that will give us the eyes to see it is the intention. Pray to the Sadguru, give me the eyes to see your beauty all around me. Show me the miracles, show me the mystery, the connectedness, the oneness of life. I want to see it. Like, that's a type of devotion, right? And you just begin there, because you definitely can't wait for the mind to see it and go, whoa, I'm seeing wonder and beauty and oneness all around. Great, now I can love reality. That's never going to happen, is it? The mind's going to see its own projections, and that's it. So it's our intention and our desire, our motivation, that changes the mind. Like, how bad do you want it? Right? The guru that tells the disciple, meet me by the beach tomorrow morning for your first, session with me, starts drowning him in the ocean till he can't breathe, pulls his head out and says, unless you want liberation worse than this next breath, you will not achieve it. It's like that. It's like, unless I desire it, how's the universe going to know to give it to me? So this was very much a point of my own journey I came to after years of studying non-duality and like, hey, I can give great lectures on non-duality, but I still suffer when I'm alone in a room with no one else there. I still feel lonely. I still feel empty and meaningless. And it wasn't until that voice of reason dawned in my mind, literally like a ray of sunlight or something, and said, you forgot that I can be loved. You just thought I was this intellectual pursuit all these years. You thought I was just knowledge, and I am knowledge, but I'm first and foremost, I am love, and you can love God. You can know God. And I was like, oh man, how did I forget that? I spent the first 23 years of my life in church, worshiping and loving God. I had no knowledge. I had all my concepts about God were wrong, and it didn't even matter. I loved God belligerently anyways. So it's like, I had to integrate that bhakti devotional aspect back into my spiritual practice again. And at a certain point, like, once you have the knowledge, the love just catalyzes it. It just amplifies the knowledge, because when you love something, that's really the highest form of knowing it. So all of the truths we know, the concepts we've learned from the books and the videos, when you truly start to love reality, it's like you'll learn them 3 times over more than you thought you could have. Like, you thought you had it figured out, you were never even seeing it yet. Like, love is the oxygen that knowledge needs to breathe.
Yeah. So I heard you say devotion, and I heard you say love reality. And reality, from a human perspective, is pretty hard to love sometimes. In non-duality, if like in a strictly non-dual sense, devotion is even a little bit tricky, because you're saying there's just this one thing, and I'm it, and that's all there is. So devotion to yourself, you know, feels a little bit strange.
Yeah. Think about it like this. We need devotion because we came here as a separate self in this dream, and another dream character came and told us, hey, you're not separate. You're the one. It's like, okay, great. I've got this concept, but I still don't believe it yet. How do I know? Because I'm not free, because I'm still suffering. And so devotion is like the magnet that draws us to that supreme self that we forgot we are. So it's always a concession to our belief that we're a separate self. But even the best bhaktis, the best bhakti yogis of all the ages of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda, they would write their poetry like this and say, I do not want to merge with you because then I can't love you like this. Like, let me be born again and again and be thou ever my love. Like, that is my heart's desire. I do not want liberation, which is dry and tasteless. I desire only to be your devotee. And they would write like this. And there's such tremendous power in that, because in a sense, while we're in this dream, there's always going to be some semblance of separation. And we can know inwardly, we can have the full self-realization like Ramana Maharshi or something, but we're still living in a body as a separate entity in a dream. And so devotion is always applicable to us in this life. And all the best sages will tell you that. Maharaji, Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta called himself a bhakti, even though he's known as like the great jnana teacher. He was first and foremost a bhakti, like his own guru was. And that's how he considered himself. And it's really just the purest state of consciousness to have in this life, is like, I exist only for you and to know you. And at a certain point of devotion, that desire to know flips around and you start to get a glimpse of it. It is myself I am loving. That love which I burn for is me. But how could I even know that? Because of how infinite it is. Like, I need this perspective. I have to have these different angles because I'm so infinite. I'm so eternal. It's not a concept I can learn. Nobody can tell me and I can just get it, right? It has to be experienced. And that experience is what we call love.
Yeah. So the devotion isn't a step backwards then, even though
Not
it's
at
a
all.
concession. Because it sounds like logically, okay, if I'm going for this non-dual thing, then being devoted to something that's not me, sounds like, okay, maybe that's not ultimately the right thing to do. So there's just that little tiny doubt, there.
Right. And see, that's what the mind does. The mind will always get tripped up on itself and get tangled in its own concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't trust the mind to get it for you. You got to follow the heart. And if your heart is saying, I'm still empty down here, something isn't right, something's missing, I feel empty, I feel meaningless, like, give me what I'm longing for. It's always that devotion. The heart wants to love God.
Okay.
So
Anything
remember,
else before I go?
the practice, the takeaway from this conversation, if you don't have that ever abiding love for reality, if you're not seeing the face of God in everything, then want to, desire to see it, ask for it, ask and it shall be given, right? Matthew 7:7. This is law of attraction 101. Whatever I focus on becomes my reality. So if it's not there yet, want it to be there. And by wanting it, there it is. You bring it to life.